This is Stuck, and in this video we are looking at the opposition to religious change. So a couple of videos ago we looked at the spread of Protestantism, now we'll look at who opposed it. So first of all, let's look at the social impacts of religious change, because a huge amount of land was removed from the church and given to the crown. Now this should have made the crown extremely rich, yet they sold much of the monastic land to fund Henry's warlike policies, and by 1547 almost 2/3 of monastic land had been sold onto the gentry. Now many monasteries were noted for their educational purposes, and this was lost with the dissolution of the monasteries, which we'll talk about in depth in a later video. Now many monks and nuns were made unemployed instantly, and while some were able to secure pensions, they were left in a very precarious position. Now the monasteries played a major part in the community, and this was lost with the dissolution of the monasteries. So for many Catholics, which was the majority of England, it also went against their religion. And one of the highest profile victims of the Reformation was Sir Thomas More. Now he had replaced Wolsey as Lord Chancellor after 1529, yet when he was reluctant to support Henry's plans of marrying Anne Boleyn, he fell from royal favour. Now in 1534, the Succession Act was passed, and this made the children of Anne Boleyn the legitimate heirs to the throne, whilst taking Mary out of the succession. Now More refused to swear an oath accepting both the Succession Act and the royal supremacy. Now he didn't want to go against the will of the Pope. Now therefore, when the Duke of Norfolk offered More a chance to revoke his opinion, he refused. Now the trial against him commenced on July the 1st, 1535, with the judges Lord Audley, Cromwell and the Duke of Norfolk, and each of them had a reason for wanting the conviction of More. Now this meant that despite the skilled preparation of More and his incredible knowledge of the legal profession, Sir Richard Rich claimed that he had heard More saying that he didn't accept Henry as the head of the church. Now despite accusing Rich of committing perjury, the biased jury took only 15 minutes to find More guilty. Now although there was little proof of treason, More was seen as too large of a figure to avoid persecution, and was therefore executed in 1535. So before 1534, those who opposed the attack on the church showed their resistance by supporting Catherine of Aragon, and this consisted of a small group of nobles led by Henry Courtney and the northern lords Darcy and Hussey. Now Courtney was a member of the King's Privy Chamber, whilst other supporters like Sir Henry Guildford was the controller of the King's household. Now the emergence of both Anne Boleyn and Thomas Cromwell was able to silence them, yet they remained hopeful that Catherine's daughter Mary would remain heir to the throne. Now this meant that when she was excluded from the succession, it pushed Darcy and Hussey into supporting the Pilgrimages of Grace. Now we'll talk about the Pilgrimages of Grace in depth in another video, yet it was basically a rebellion mainly aimed at changing religion. Now they were executed for treason for their involvement. So Courtney didn't take part in the Pilgrimages of Grace, yet he started to support Reginald Pole, who was his distant cousin and was also a descendant of the Yorkist kings overthrown by Henry VII. Now this and his hostilities towards Cromwell led to his execution in 1538. Now there was also opposition within the clergy, and one of these was John Fisher. Now John Fisher had been the Bishop of Rochester since 1504, yet he believed that Henry's actions against Catherine were totally wrong, and he even confronted Henry over this matter. Now although Henry was fairly lenient over the situation, when Fisher refused to accept the oath accepting the divorce, he was imprisoned in the Tower. Now when the Pope declared that he was to be made cardinal, Henry VIII had him accused of high treason and executed. The next person is Elizabeth Barton, who was the nun of Kent. And Elizabeth Barton had vision since her teens following her miraculous cure following an illness in 1525. and she had acquired local fame and was sent to a nunnery under the protection of Dr. Edward Bocking. Now by 1528, her visions turned to the king's marriage and the disastrous consequences of a divorce, including the king's death. Now she had even said this to the king's face. Now by 1530, her protector Bocking turned these visions into a campaign against the church, and rumours were spread around the country about the king. Now links were established with Thomas More, the Carthusian monks we were just about to talk about, and Courtney. Now with these issues, Cromwell arrested the nun and her mentors in 1533, and after Elizabeth Barton confessed that her visions were false, they were all executed in April 1534 by using an Act of Attainder. So the final opposition we'll talk about is the Carthusian monks, and although many of the monastic orders such as the Cistercians and the Benedictines were not widely active after their dissolution, the Carthusian monks were able to react far more effectively. So in 1532 to 1533, they refused to accept the divorce, and in 1534, they refused to agree to a declaration against the Pope's authority. Now, as a result, after the Treason Act was released, 18 of the most reluctant men were arrested and executed between the dates 1535 to 1540. Now, some of these men, like Sebastian Newdigate, were even the king's friend. Now, the king had even visited him in Tower to try and persuade him to accept his supremacy over the church. So thank you for watching this video. Hopefully you've seen the extent to the religious opposition in the country, as before any religious change, the majority of the population were Catholics. So thank you and see you soon. Bye.